The night was colder than anyone expected, the kind of cold that bit through jackets, soaked into bones, and made even the streetlights seem to shiver. Ethan Carter, one of New York's youngest and most ruthless CEOs, stepped out his sleek black SUV, finishing the call with a voice cold enough to match the weather. But his stride halted. A tiny voice, fragile, shaky, and desperate, broke through the frozen air. "Sir, my baby sister's freezing." Ethan turned, brows tightening. A boy stood near the alley entrance, no older than 7, wearing an oversized hoodie that wasn't enough to fight October's brutal chill. His small hands were red and trembling. Behind him, wrapped in a thin towel, was a baby girl barely a few months old. Ethan felt something shift, like a gear inside him grinding for the first time in years. "Where are your parents?" Ethan asked. The boy swallowed hard. "Mama went to get food from the shelter, but she didn't come back. It's been hours." His voice cracked as he glanced at the bundle in his arms. "My sister's turning cold. I don't know what to do." Before Ethan could speak, the baby let out a weak whimper. Not a cry, just a soft, fading sound. It punched straight through his chest. For a man known for boardroom steel, Ethan didn't think. Instinct took over. He shrugged off his tailor wool coat, worth more than the boy had probably seen in his lifetime, and wrapped it around both children, pulling them close. "Come here. Stay warm," he murmured, surprising even himself with the softness in his voice. The boy looked up, eyes shimmering. "Thank you, sir." Ethan scooped up the baby carefully, motioning the boy to walk with him. He felt the baby's frigid skin, the weak flutter of breath. She needed warmth. Immediate warmth. "Get in," Ethan ordered, guiding the little boy into the back seat of his SUV, before placing the baby in his lap. The driver stared in shock, but one sharp glare from Ethan shut any questions. As the heater blasted warm air into the car, Ethan rubbed the baby's tiny hands gently, trying to bring life back into them. The boy watched him with wide, uncertain eyes. "You're helping us?" the boy whispered, as if he didn't believe it. Ethan nodded. "Until your mom returns, or until I find her." The boy's lower lip shook. "What if she's not coming back?" Ethan paused. His world was built on deals, numbers, and logic. But this was different. This was survival. This was human. "What's your name?" he asked finally. "Liam," the boy answered. "And she's Ella." Ethan repeated the names quietly, memorizing them. The SUV rolled through the city streets toward Ethan's penthouse, a place with more rooms than he used, more space than he needed, space that tonight for once would have a purpose. But just as they pulled into the underground garage, Liam grabbed Ethan's sleeve. "Please, don't take us to the police," he begged, fear flooding his gray eyes. "They'll separate us. They always do. I promised Mama I'd never let Ella go." His voice broke on Ella's name. Ethan froze. Something about the boy's raw fear slammed Ethan back into memories he'd buried. Cold nights locked outside by a father who believed in tough love, and a little sister he'd failed to protect. He breathed slowly, tightening his grip on the sleeping baby. "I'm not letting anyone take your sister from you," he said in a tone that wasn't a promise. It was a vow. Liam's shoulders sagged with relief. Inside the penthouse, warmth flooded them instantly. The boy gasped at the high ceilings, the glowing floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Manhattan, the soft lights that seemed too beautiful to belong to the same world they had come from. Ethan set the baby on a heated blanket and called his private doctor, not his assistant, not his secretary, but the doctor himself. Within minutes, Dr. Harper arrived, his medical bag swinging as he moved swiftly. He examined Ella carefully, his expression tight but hopeful. "She's cold, dehydrated, and underfed, but she's strong. Her body is fighting." Ethan felt a breath he didn't know he was holding slip out. "Can you save her?" Liam asked, voice trembling. "Yes," Dr. Harper said with a reassuring smile. "With proper care and warmth, she'll recover." Liam's small body collapsed into a silent, relieved sob. Ethan watched, feeling a strange ache in his chest. Something unfamiliar. Something he didn't allow himself to feel. Empathy. Protectiveness. Maybe even responsibility. As Dr. Harper prepared warm formula, Liam yawned. He hadn't slept. Ethan could tell by the dark circles under his eyes. Without thinking, Ethan lifted the boy gently and placed him on the plush sofa. "You're safe here," Ethan said. "Both of you." Liam blinked slowly. "But why are you helping us? You don't even know us." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Maybe I know what it feels like to be cold," he said softly. "And alone." Liam's eyes widened, but he didn't ask anything else. Exhaustion pulled him under, and he slept curled near his baby sister. Ethan stood over them, watching their tiny chests rise and fall. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, finding their mother, dealing with authorities, or figuring out why his heart felt different tonight. But he did know one thing. He wasn't letting them go. Not yet. Ethan stood there longer than he intended. Arms folded, gaze fixed on the fragile pair now asleep on his expensive Italian leather sofa. The city lights flickered across the room, casting long shadows that made the moment feel unreal, like something borrowed from a life that wasn't his. A CEO's penthouse was supposed to be silent, controlled, predictable. But with Liam's soft breathing and Ella's faint coos filling the air, the place felt human for the first time in years. He didn't move until Dr. Harper approached quietly, lowering his voice. "She's stabilizing. Warmth and formula will do most of the work. I'll leave instructions with you, and I'll stop by again at dawn." Ethan nodded. He rarely thanked anyone, but something in him shifted. "Harper, thank you." The doctor paused, eyebrows lifting. "You don't usually say that." Ethan looked away. "Tonight isn't usual." Harper glanced at the sleeping siblings and softened. Looks like they needed the right person at the right time. When the doctor left, Ethan locked the door behind him and leaned against it for a second, breathing deeply. He wasn't a man who lost control. Not in meetings, not in negotiations, not even when his father died and left him a shattered empire to rebuild. But that moment in the alley, holding that freezing baby, hearing Liam's trembling voice, something inside him cracked open. He walked back to the living room, noticing the way Liam had shifted in his sleep, curling protectively toward the baby even though Ethan's coat was wrapped around both of them. Ethan slipped the blanket up to cover Liam's shoulder, and the boy sighed in relief. It hit him harder than he expected. He moved to the kitchen, trying to distract himself by preparing warm milk as Harper instructed. His penthouse, immaculate, white, sharp-edged, now felt too clean, too cold. Maybe he liked it that way because it kept people out, kept emotions out. But today, a boy and a baby had walked in and rearranged his entire world without asking permission. A soft whimper broke through the silence. Ella stirred. Ethan rushed to the sofa, faster than he thought he could move. She wasn't crying, not fully, but she looked uncomfortable, tiny fingers twitching. Her cheeks were still pale. Ethan scooped her gently, remembering Harper's instructions. Support the head. Keep her close to his chest for warmth. Her body was unbelievably light, almost weightless. He could feel her heartbeat, faint but steady, tapping against him. "It's okay," he whispered, voice barely audible. "You're safe now." Liam blinked awake, eyes foggy with sleep, and saw Ethan holding the baby. For a moment, fear flickered across the boy's face. "Is she okay?" Liam asked quickly, sitting up. "She's warming up," Ethan said. "I'm going to feed her." Liam rubbed his eyes, nodding. "Mama used to, but she said I'm too little to help." Ethan studied him. This boy had been protecting a baby alone in freezing weather, and he thought he was too little to help? Ethan crouched beside him, adjusting Ella in his arms. "You did more than most adults would," he said quietly. "Your sister is alive because of you." Liam's lip trembled at the words. He pretended to wipe his eyes with his sleeve, pretending it was just tiredness. Ethan gave him space. He fed Ella slowly, watching her tiny mouth latch onto the bottle, her body finally relaxing. Liam leaned against him, eyes glued to his sister, his hands nervously fidgeting with the edge of the coat. "She's really going to be okay?" the boy asked again, softer this time. "She will," Ethan promised. "I'll make sure of it." When Ella finished, Ethan burped her, something he never imagined doing in his lifetime. The baby made a tiny hiccup sound that made Liam giggle softly. "That means she likes you," the boy whispered shyly. Ethan felt a warm spread in his chest, unexpected and unsettling. Does it now? Liam nodded seriously. Babies don't laugh or hiccup unless they feel safe. Safe. That word echoed inside Ethan's mind like a stone dropped into deep water. Safe was something he rarely felt growing up. Safe was something he didn't believe in. But this tiny family, this boy who looked at him with trust he didn't deserve, had brought that word into his home. Liam yawned again, this time leaning sideways until his head rested against Ethan's arm. Ethan froze, because no one touched him casually. Not employees, not colleagues, not even the women he dated. But Liam's small head on his arm felt natural. Right? He shifted just enough to be comfortable and let the boy rest. Minutes passed. The room settled into a quiet Ethan never knew he needed. Then Liam spoke again, eyes half closed. Sir, when Mama comes back, can we stay here? Just for one night? She gets scared in shelters. She says bad people try to take babies there. Ethan tightened his grip protectively around the baby. You can stay as long as you need, he said before he could stop himself. Liam's breathing slowed. Thank you. Ethan let out a slow breath, looking at the two small lives depending on him. His phone buzzed. A notification from his assistant about a 6 a.m. meeting with investors. A meeting he suddenly didn't care about. For the first time in years, something mattered more than business. He silenced the phone. He looked at Ella, sleeping peacefully, and Liam leaning into him with trust that scared him more than any corporate takeover ever could. His life had shifted, and he wasn't ready for how deep that shift was about to go. Ethan remained still, barely breathing, afraid that any movement might break the fragile sense of peace that had settled over the room. Liam's head rested on his arm, warm and feather-light. Ella slept against his chest, her soft breath spreading a delicate warmth over his shirt. It was a strange feeling, one that squeezed at something deep inside him, something he'd long forgotten how to access, something human. The city hummed below them, distant and muted. The penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows reflected the scene back to him. Him on the sofa, holding a baby, a little boy leaning on him, and the reflection felt like a version of himself he didn't recognize but didn't reject either. He shifted slightly to adjust Ella's position, and Liam murmured sleepily, "Don't go." Ethan froze. The words, soft, instinctive, scared, hit him with more force than he expected. "I'm right here," he replied quietly. Liam's tiny fingers curled around the sleeve of Ethan's shirt, as if seeking proof. His grip was small but determined. Ethan swallowed tightly. It wasn't supposed to matter. They weren't his responsibility. They were strangers he found in an alley. He had meetings tomorrow. He had a company that demanded every ounce of attention, but none of that seemed to matter right now. Ella shifted against him, making a soft cooing sound, and Ethan looked down at her. Her small face was relaxed now, her cheeks warming back to a healthy pink. She looked peaceful, trusting. He wondered when he had last held anyone like this. He couldn't remember. After a while, Liam's breathing deepened, slow, even, safe. Ethan gently eased himself up, cradling Ella carefully with one arm. Liam instinctively reached out in his sleep, searching for Ella, fear flickering across his face. Ethan softly touched his shoulder. "I'm taking her to the guest room. You're coming with us." The boy settled at the reassurance. Ethan carried Ella into one of the guest suites, one he never used, and switched on the soft side lamp. The warm glow filled the room, making it feel less like a forgotten corner of a mansion and more like a safe harbor. He turned back to lift Liam, who woke enough to cling to Ethan's neck as he was carried. The boy was too light, far too light for his age. Another reminder of how long he must have been fighting to survive. Ethan settled both children on the large bed. Ella was placed in the center, wrapped snugly in blankets. Liam curled beside her protectively, even in sleep. Ethan exhaled slowly. He pulled the blankets over them, tucking the corners with a care that surprised him. When he turned to leave, Liam's voice, groggy and barely audible, stopped him. "Please, don't turn off the light." Ethan turned back. "I won't." The boy blinked up at him, eyes glassy. "Mama says darkness makes bad people brave." A cold chill ran down Ethan's spine. He crouched beside the bed. "You're safe here. No one's getting in." Liam studied his face, as if checking the truth for himself. Then he nodded and closed his eyes again. Ethan sat there for a moment longer, watching them until their breathing synchronized, gentle, steady, warm. When he stood up and left the room, leaving the door slightly open, he felt tension drain from his shoulders in a way he hadn't experienced in years. He walked to the kitchen and leaned on the counter, running a hand through his hair. What was he supposed to do now? This wasn't a one-night act of kindness. Liam refused the police. They had no mother in sight. They were half-starved, freezing, vulnerable. And he was the only person standing between them and danger. He poured himself a glass of water, though his hands trembled faintly. He had built his life on control, unshakable, disciplined, emotionless control. His childhood had taught him not to rely on anyone, not to feel too deeply, not to let attachment creep in. It created weakness, his father had said, and now he had 2 children sleeping under his roof, clinging to him like he was the safest thing they had in the world. He walked toward his office, the room where he made multi-million-dollar decisions without blinking. But as he sat in his leather chair, the weight of the day pressed down on him. He opened his laptop automatically, but instead of reading his schedule or answering emails, he typed, "Missing woman near Midtown shelter with 2 children? Recent reports?" He searched every local news site, every police update, every missing person page. Nothing about a mother named anything connected to Liam or Ella. He checked the shelter's logs. He had contacts everywhere. Money moved information. But there was no trace of a woman with 2 children arriving today. Something was wrong. He leaned back, rubbing the bridge of his nose. The silence of the office felt heavy, almost suffocating. His gaze drifted to the hallway, leading back to the guest room. The thought of the children alone in the dark twisted something inside him. He stood up, quietly. He walked back to the guest room. The door was still cracked open. He peeked in. Liam was clutching Ethan's coat, like it was a lifeline. Ella was sleeping soundly, her tiny hand resting on Liam's arm. Ethan's throat tightened. He stepped inside and pulled a chair beside the bed, sitting down where he could watch both of them. He wasn't sure why he did it. Maybe because the boy had asked him not to leave. Maybe because he felt responsible in a way he couldn't explain. Or maybe because something in him recognized their fear. For the first time in years, Ethan didn't think about meetings or deadlines or stock prices. His focus was entirely here. He didn't know what tomorrow would demand of him. He didn't know where their mother was. He didn't know why fate had shoved these children into his path. But as he sat beside their bed, watching over them like a silent guardian, he knew one thing with certainty. He wasn't letting anything happen to them. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Ethan didn't remember falling asleep. One moment he was watching the gentle rise and fall of Liam and Ella's breaths, and the next, a faint rustling sound pulled him up from a light, uneasy doze. His eyes snapped open, instinct sharper than usual. Early morning sunlight had started to creep through the curtains, painting thin lines of gold across the room. Liam was sitting up, hair messy, eyes puffy from sleep, but alert. He was leaning over Ella, checking her tiny chest for movement, making sure she was still breathing. The boy's face carried a level of responsibility no 7-year-old should ever have to bear. When he saw Ethan awake, Liam froze. "I didn't wake you, did I?" Ethan shook his head. "No, I was already up." Liam relaxed, though just barely. His small shoulders still trembled from some leftover fear of the night. "She's warmer," the boy whispered, touching Ella's cheek gently. "A lot warmer." "She is," Ethan agreed. "You both slept well." Liam looked down shyly. "It's the first bed we had in a long time." The words landed heavier than they sounded. Ethan hadn't considered where they had been sleeping before. Alleys? Shelters? Abandoned apartments? He didn't want to imagine. Ella suddenly made a soft squeak, her eyelids fluttering as she stretched her arms. Liam leaned over her immediately, concern turning into relief. "Hi, Ella. I'm right here." The baby cooed at her brother's voice. Ethan stood, grabbing the bottle Harper had left in a warming unit. "Let's feed her." Liam nodded eagerly but stayed back a little, almost as if worried he might be in the way. Ethan noticed. and it bothered him more than he expected. "You can sit with me," Ethan said, moving to the edge of the bed. Liam climbed beside him, careful not to shake the mattress too much. Ethan held Ella as she latched onto bottle, drinking with more energy than last night. Liam watched every movement, like it was the most important moment of his life. "Sir," Liam said after a long pause. Can I ask something?" "Of course." "Why did you stay in here? You could have slept in your room, but you didn't." Ethan hesitated. He didn't have a perfect answer. All he knew was that leaving them alone felt wrong. It felt like the universe had handed him a responsibility he wasn't supposed to walk away from. "Because you asked me not to leave the light," Ethan said. "And because it looked like you needed someone close." Liam swallowed, eyes turning glassy again. "Mama says boys don't cry, but I think she was wrong." Ethan exhaled slowly. "She's very wrong." Liam blinked hard. "I get scared at night. I pretend I'm not, but I get scared a lot." He looked up, little face trembling, voice fragile. "Is it okay to be scared?" Ethan's throat tightened. The question hit far too close to his own childhood. He could still hear his father's voice barking at him whenever he showed fear. He looked at Liam, holding Ella with small hands, protecting her with more courage than most grown men. "Yes," Ethan said quietly. "It's okay. It's normal. It means you care about something." Liam wiped his eyes. "Do you get scared?" "Sometimes," Ethan admitted. Liam seemed shocked. "But you're a big boss. Mama said rich people don't get scared of anything." Ethan almost smiled. "Money doesn't erase fear. It only hides it." Liam mulled that over like it was a puzzle he'd never heard before. After Ella finished eating, Ethan burped her gently, and she let out another hiccup, this one louder. Liam giggled again, and for a moment, the room felt lighter, a sweet, fragile morning peace. But that peace didn't last long. Ethan's phone buzzed in his pocket, an aggressive vibration that didn't fit the calm atmosphere. He checked it. His assistant, Rebecca, had sent a dozen messages. "Meeting starts in 45 minutes. Investors already arriving. Are you on your way? Is everything okay?" Ethan frowned. Normally, he never missed meetings, never postponed, never let emotions interfere. But today, he looked at the children again. Liam's hands were on Ella's blanket, making sure she stayed warm. Ethan imagined leaving them alone even for an hour, and something inside him recoiled at the thought. "Are you going somewhere?" Liam asked suddenly, sensing the shift in Ethan's expression. Ethan put the phone face down on the bed. "No," he said firmly. "I'm staying." Liam let out a breath, as if releasing a weight he'd been carrying all night. "Okay." After settling Ella beside her brother again, Ethan grabbed his phone and stepped into the hallway, closing the door enough to keep the room warm, but leaving it open a crack. He dialed Rebecca. The moment she answered, her voice was sharp. "Where are you?" "They're all waiting." "Cancel everything," Ethan said. Rebecca froze. "Cancel the investor meeting?" "Yes, all of it." There was a stunned silence. "Sir, with respect, that meeting determines the quarter's trajectory. It can wait." "May I ask why?" Ethan looked back toward the guest room. The dim light, the soft rustle of blankets, the faint sound of Liam humming to Ella. "For personal reasons," he replied. Rebecca had worked for him long enough to recognize when to stop questioning him. "Understood, sir. I'll take care of it." He hung up. His heartbeat was different. Steady, heavy, sure. It felt like he'd made the right decision in a way that business never made him feel. He returned to the room. Liam looked up immediately, relief washing over his small face when he saw Ethan still there. "What now?" Liam asked softly. Ethan sat on the chair again. "Now," he said, "we eat breakfast." Liam blinked. "Breakfast? Like real breakfast?" "Yes," Ethan said. "Pancakes, eggs, anything you want." The boy's smile came slowly, like he hadn't used it in a long time. "I've never had pancakes," Liam whispered. Ethan's heart clenched. "Then today is your first." The boy nodded with quiet excitement, reaching for Ella's hand. And Ethan knew knew with absolute certainty that he wasn't letting these kids go. Not until he found out who they were, what happened to their mother, and why fate had pushed them into his arms. The moment Ethan set a plate of warm pancakes before Liam, something in the boy's expression shifted. Something hopeful, something that looked almost like disbelief. He picked up the fork with trembling fingers, took a small bite, then paused as if tasting safety for first time. Ella, nestled in Ethan's arm, gurgled happily as though she, too, sensed a world changing around her. For a moment, the kitchen glowed with a strange warmth Ethan had never felt in this penthouse, a warmth that didn't come from heated marble floors or state-of-the-art appliances, but from the simple act of giving a child the childhood he deserved. But that moment shattered when Ethan's building security called his private line. A woman was downstairs, crying, weak, barely standing, and she kept whispering two names through her tears. Ella, Liam. Ethan didn't wait for the whole report. He grabbed his coat, scooped up Ella, and told Liam gently, "Stay right here. I'll be back. I promise." But Liam's face drained of color. "Is it someone bad?" "No," Ethan said, kneeling before him. "I think it might be someone you've been waiting for." The boy's breath hitched. Ethan hurried to the elevator, heart racing with something he refused to name. When the door slid open to the lobby, he stopped in his tracks. A young woman stood by the marble wall, thin, shivering, eyes swollen, clothes damp from the cold. She clutched the empty space against her chest like she expected her babies to be in her arms. When she looked up and saw Ethan holding Ella, her knees buckled. A choked sound escaped her throat, half cry, half prayer, as she stumbled forward. "My baby," she whispered. "Please, please, that's my baby. Ella, give her to me, God, please." Ethan stepped closer and gently placed Ella into her mother's arms. The woman cradled the infant desperately, kissing her forehead over and over, sobbing with relief. "I thought I lost them," she cried. "I was attacked. They stole my bag. I looked everywhere. I thought someone took my babies." "You did everything you could," Ethan said softly. "They're safe." But before she could answer, small footsteps echoed from the hallway as Liam ran in, eyes wide. "Mama!" he screamed. The woman dropped to her knees as he collided into her arms. She wrapped both children tightly, crying into their hair, rocking them as if her arms alone could shield them from everything cruel the world ever tried to throw at them. Ethan looked away for a moment. The pure rawness of that reunion hit him harder than he expected. After several minutes, the woman lifted her face, wiping her eyes with trembling fingers. She finally noticed Ethan fully, his expensive clothes, the building, the guards. Everything too polished to match her world. You helped them?" she whispered. "Yes," Ethan said simply. She bowed her head, shaking with gratitude. I don't have words to thank you. I would have died if anything happened to them." Ethan glanced at the small family huddled together on the cold lobby floor. Something inside him twisted, not painful, but profound. He realized then just how deeply these two children had carved themselves into him in less than 24 hours. He offered his hand to help her up. "Come upstairs. You're shaking." The woman hesitated. "Sir, I can't go to places like this. People don't like seeing someone like me in a building like yours." "I do," Ethan said firmly. And that was the end of the discussion. Back in the penthouse, she sat at the table while Liam clung to her side and Ella slept in her arms. Ethan prepared tea for her, hands surprisingly steady for someone who didn't do domestic tasks. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, fragile. "My name is Elena. I've been trying to get us into safe housing. Every day is a fight. I haven't eaten since yesterday. I didn't mean to scare Liam. I told him I'd come right back. I didn't." Ethan listened without interrupting. "I thought I failed them," she whispered, tears streaking again. "Mothers aren't supposed to fail." Ethan leaned forward. "But you didn't. You survived. They survived because of you." Elena looked up, shocked by the sincerity in his eyes. Liam rested his head on her arm, and Ella stirred softly. Ethan watched them with a kind of ache he had no name for. He had lived his life chasing success, power, money, Yet none of it ever felt as meaningful as seeing these children safe. None of it ever filled the space inside him that had been hollow for years. He cleared his throat. You don't have to go back to the streets. Elena blinked. I don't have a choice. You do now, Ethan said. Let me help you. Not out of charity. Out of responsibility. Out of something I can't fully explain yet. She covered her mouth with her free hand, shaking her head. I can't accept something so big. You can, Ethan said gently. And you should, for them. Liam looked at Ethan with those same trusting gray eyes from the night before. Are we staying? With you? Ethan crouched in front of him, meeting his gaze. Yes, if your mother agrees. You'll be safe here. All of you. Elena broke into fresh tears, not of pain, but of overwhelming relief. God sent you, she whispered. I know he did. For the first time in a very long time, Ethan smiled, truly smiled. Maybe fate had brought them together. Maybe it was destiny. Maybe it was simply one cold night that changed everything. But as he looked at Liam holding his mother's hand, Ella sleeping peacefully at last, and Elena finally breathing without fear, he understood something. He hadn't saved them. They had saved him. And his life, from this day forward, would never be the same again. The end.